In this Multiversus Gizmo video, we're going to go over the best perks to use with Gizmo in Multiverses. So from the main menu here, I'm going to select the collection, and then from our fighters, I'm going to select Gizmo to take you into the training perks menu for Gizmo. Now, you can see that I've been using Gizmo quite a bit, and I'm working towards tier 13 or level 13, so I've used quite a lot of his perks, and I have a good understanding on how to use Gizmo. There are 3 lower level perks that you can select per match, and there is 1 signature perk. If you select your signature perks, you can see that Gizmo has 3 signature perks available, but you have more lower level perks that will influence your build when you're using Gizmo in Multiverses. Let's access these perks now by selecting the train perks. If you're following along, this is really going to help you, so remember to stay till the end of the video so that you get all of the value that I'm giving to you here in this Gizmo perks video. Now in the offense section, you will have Gizmo's known perks. These are the perks that you have unlocked for your Gizmo build when you're using Gizmo. And these are also, when you're following along, the ones that you're most likely going to have unlocked as a lower level Gizmo, or if you're just getting started with Gizmo. Then you have the unlocked perks from other characters, and you have all other perks. The unlocked perks from other characters you can unlock for your Gizmo by selecting it, and as you can see here, the Armor Crush perk can be purchased at the cost of 100 gold, and I can then use that with Gizmo if I choose to select this perk and then select Train Perk, which will be available in Gizmo's known perks once I do this. I currently have 11,270 gold available, so I could train this perk, and it is an option. Let's keep that in mind when we're selecting the best perks for Gizmo. This is also repeated for the defense section and utility section, which are different types of perks that are categorized together. Then you can categorize all of your perks together in an all tab. Going back to the offense section, let's get started here, and let's select the best offense perks to use with Gizmo in Multiverses. Now Gizmo has a moveset that allows him to debuff characters. You can do this using his charged moves. Let's go quickly into the moveset here to show you what I mean. If you go into the charged special move here, Gizmo sings, spawning musical note projectiles that damage enemies and hit and apply music. Now music is a type of debuff, although this is not defined in the glossary of the game. Music is a type of debuff, and you can see it here in this menu, so it makes more sense to you. This is why I wanted to take you through this before we select the best perks in the offense section, because this is going to be important. The musical notes will fly towards nearby allies, giving them music buff. So not only are you able to debuff your enemies with this, but you're able to also apply a buff to your allies on the arena if you're playing a 2-on-2 match. There is also a few other things that we should consider with your Gizmo here, and that is Gizmo uses a lot of projectiles, and these are in the form of arrows, and they are very fast on the arena. You can also apply ignite with this if you charge this long enough. So the arrow can also apply ignite, of course, if it hits the enemy. Now with that said, let's get into, just before we go actually, there is also the Gizmo Agogo. Now what Gizmo Agogo is when you press up and your special move, if your enemy is close by, you will hit them, but if your ally is closer to you and you haven't already done this with the cooldown, you will actually latch onto the back of your ally, and this will keep you very close to your ally, and you can use your charge attacks from your ally's back. Your ally will be doing the movement. It's very similar to the Iron Giant's special move that he also has. Now that we've considered all of that, let's get back into the train perks menu, and with that all said, this is really going to make sense for you when we're selecting these best perks here. So I've just said that we will be debuffing the enemies with that charge special move, which you can use quite often, and there is a variety of ways that you can use this. When you're using your popcorn move, there is a charge popcorn move. It's up and the basic attack button. When you're doing this, this popcorn can also absorb your music debuff. It actually encases inside of the popcorn. Now let's keep in mind that if you're up against a Superman can actually freeze your popcorn, which renders it useless for a while. You won't be able to use your popcorn, so do keep that in mind. But with all that said, I do think one of the best perks to use for your Gizmo build in this section here is going to be 100% the Deadshot. Your team deals 5% increased damage with projectiles. Now because you're using projectiles quite a lot, and those arrows are something that you use quite a lot with your Gizmo, Deadshot is definitely going to be one of the best ones to use, and we're going to train this perk now so it's available in our Gizmo's known perks. So Deadshot, definitely one of the best perks to use. Now let's talk about that knockback. So Gizmo has two relevant knockback moves that you will be using more often, and those are the umbrella move. There is an umbrella move in the air. It has a horizontal knockback, and if you land this in the air, it can be very, very helpful. The lumpy space punch is definitely going to help you out with that. It's going to give you that further increased knockback damage when you're using that move in the air. So definitely consider the lumpy space punch for that when you're using that umbrella in the air, if you're using the umbrella quite often. So I guess some of you are wondering already, some of you pros are probably wondering why I've selected the lumpy space punch over the percussive punch power. Now, percussive punch power is definitely one of the best perks to use with Gizmo because of that umbrella horizontal knockback. When you're using that umbrella in the air, it's a special move and it will send your enemies flying horizontally. It's definitely great to use and one of the best knockbacks to use with Gizmo. But with the build that we're going to be using in this example, but with the signature perk that we will be selecting, this is why we have selected the lumpy space punch, because the melee attacks in the air that we will be using, those down basics and those down specials to slam down on top of the enemies when you're above them, is definitely going to come in handy, and you'll still be able to use your knockback. And that signature perk is going to be stacked. Stay to the end of the video so you can understand this build fully. Now, we have talked about debuffs, and this is the reason why the hitting while they're down is going to be one that you could consider with your Gizmo. As you can tell here, there is a lot of attack perks that we have selected, and this is going to be one of the best ones to use with Gizmo, as you are debuffing your enemies with that music stack. Now, it's not defined as a debuff, but I consider it a debuff, and that's the reason why I'm going to say this as a sort of bonus pick, as something that you could select here, because it's not actually defined as a debuff in the glossary, but I'm going to train it anyway, so it's available and something that we can consider. Now, I've seen a lot of players, and I mean a lot of players, that are using the That's Flammable Dock with their Gizmo build. This is because it increases the likelihood of you applying that debuff and applying that flammable damage to an enemy. So instead of having to charge your arrow every 2 seconds to make sure that you're debuffing an enemy for additional damage, you are getting that ignite buff, that ignite debuff on your enemies even when you're not charging your arrow, which of course gives you a high likelihood of you debuffing the enemy. Definitely one of the best ones to use for your Gizmo build. Don't forget to let me know what you're using with your Gizmo build in Multiversus. There is also the up and a sleigh, really not necessary, but it could be something that you can consider when you're using your toy car, as the toy car has a knockback upwards, but of course, like your arrows, the knockback is not too significant until those damage numbers have built up. But the up and a sleigh is definitely going to do a lot more for your knockback if you're not using your umbrella. Definitely one for you to consider. Don't forget to stay to the end of the video so you know how to stack these perks together so you can get a master build with your Gizmo. Now let's cover the defense section for Gizmo, and we really have hit the nail on the head with the perk that is selected for Gizmo early on, and that is the back-to-back. The back-to-back is going to be absolutely brilliant because of that move that we've just gone over in the moveset. Going back to it here, let me show you what we mean. We are talking about the Gizmo A-Go-Go. So when you're on the back of your ally, you are also next to them. So of course, using something like the back-to-back is going to be absolutely brilliant in your defense section because it's going to give you that increased defense. Your team receives 6% reduced damage when near an ally, and of course you are literally on top of your ally when you're using that special move there. Definitely the best perk to use in the defense section for Gizmo. Now of course there is also a mix and match here where you can mix and match based on your moveset and on your playstyle. Let me know what defense perk you're using for Gizmo. Now that we've covered the defense section and I'm happy with what I've selected here for the best perks to use with Gizmo, let's get into utility. So that Gizmo A-Go-Go really is situational, and it does require you to use that move next to your ally. If you're not close enough to your ally, or you've just done that move and you're on cooldown, you won't be able to use that defense perk. So for a substitution for that, if you don't like selecting defense perks, I would say select the retaliation ready, as you are going to use your arrows quite often, and if you're knocking back someone with your projectile, that is going to give you that grey health. I've gone over grey health before. Grey health is replacing your usual damage numbers and replacing it with a grey health which takes slightly longer to deplete, which means that you're having less of a knockback if an enemy is trying to knock you back, as you have less damage numbers. The higher your damage numbers, the more likelihood of you being knocked back and wrung out of the arena and off the platform. Of course, if your damage numbers are low or being stagnated and kept in the same place because you have grey health instead, substituting your damage numbers, then you are going to stay on the arena and platform more often. So of course, the retaliation ready is definitely going to be one of the best perks to use for Gizmo in this section here. Others are situational, again based on your playstyle. The umbrella is very useful as you can use it for mobility. If you hold it, you can then glide back to the platform, which is extremely useful. So that's definitely going to be one for you to use. And along with that, you could use the triple jump. So of course, using triple jump is going to give you that extra air if you're hitting an enemy in the air, and if you've just used your umbrella and it's the second time you've used your umbrella in the air, you will then get a third jump. So you'll be able to use that jump in the air in order for you to get out of that situation, as opposed to having to try and use that umbrella. If you've already used it twice, you won't be able to use it again. So that's what I mean by triple jump being one of the best perks to use in your utility section for your Gizmo build. Of course, Coffeezilla is always one that you can consider, as Coffeezilla is going to give you that 10% reduced ability cooldown, and if you like using the car and the other special moves that have a cooldown, then I would say select Coffeezilla. Definitely one of the best ones to use for Gizmo there. Now that we've gone over those lower level perks, let's get into that signature perk as the best perks to use with Gizmo. Don't forget to let me know what you're using with your Gizmo build in Multiversus. So now that we've covered those lower levels, let's get into that signature. Here we are, we have 3 signatures available. You have the Power Cuddle. While attached to an ally, Gizmo's charge attacks charge much faster. Then you have the Bounce Bounce Boom. Gizmo's air down special can bounce off his popcorn and his toy car to detonate them instantly, which does have a blast radius. I think it could be a larger blast radius. I feel like that could be something that gets a bit of a buff in future updates, but it is definitely one to consider. Then you have the Rhythm Is Gonna Get Ya, which is based on the 80s song. It sounds exactly like it is. Rhythm Is Gonna Get Ya. If Gizmo fully stacks music on an enemy, instead of silencing them, he will cause them to dance. Now, silence is a debuff as well, and what silence does, if we quickly go into this now, we go into the modifiers, if we scroll down, we should find silence. I'll explain to you what this means. Silence prevents an attack with cooldowns from being used. So let's say, for example, you're up against a Bugs Bunny and Bugs Bunny is using his rocket. He won't be able to use his rocket if you stacked your music fully on that enemy. So let's get back into our Gizmo build here so we can go through what's the best signature perk to use. Now, although this is absolutely brilliant if you can pull this off, one thing that is a bit of a disadvantage when you're trying to stack music is if you're not next to that enemy and you're not stacking it quickly enough, it does have a cooldown on the enemy. It counts backwards if you're not stacking that music fast enough. So if you've lost track of that enemy, of course this is a fast-paced platform beat 'em up, you are going to lose track of your enemy if you're up against a really fast player. Now, if you pull this off, brilliant. I don't think it's the best one to use at the moment because of just the fact it takes a long time to build up. I think it's like 8 stacks and it doesn't build up fast enough in my opinion. The best perk for me to use in this section for my playstyle, and most likely for your playstyle, is going to be the Bounce Bounce Boom. This is because although it takes a little bit of practice to pull this off, you are throwing popcorn quite often. You're throwing popcorn all over the place in this gameplay, and when you're using that car, it also gives it another use as well, as you'll be able to detonate this and have a blast radius when you're doing this. So 100% the Bounce Bounce Boom is definitely going to be the best one to use, because you're going to have more situations of when you can use and take advantage of this, as opposed to something like the Power Cuddle, and of course, like I've just explained, the Rhythm's Gonna Get Ya. So the Bounce Bounce Boom, definitely the best signature perk to use with Gizmo. Now that we've gone through those perks, let's show you how this is done in a match. So we're going to jump into a match now. We're going to select play, we're going to do a 2-on-2, going to select confirm.
Choose your character.
The character we're going to be selecting is Gizmo. The perks that we're going to be using for this one is the It's Flammable Dock, or That's Flammable Dock, the Lumpy Space Punch, Retaliation Ready for when we're using our projectiles, and of course the Bounce Bounce Boom. Let's jump in.
Sure you don't want to walk away?
Got to turn on my microphone there, I had it off. Quite a bit of popcorn there. Let's do some. Oh, could have done some detonation, but Wonder Woman's hit it away. Not very nice, Wonder Woman. Not very nice. Detonation there, but there's no one there. Got some more popcorn.
By the goddess!
Come on, you know you want to. Come on. Doesn't have that much reach. That hole in the middle of the map, it's just a lumpy space punch right there. When that hits, it will apply ignite as well, because it is classed as a projectile.
Take a whack at it.
Right, so I'll have to glide now. Wonder Woman thought I was out. I was not. Lumpy space punch. There she goes. She got a bit cocky there, didn't she?
It's a lucky shot.
Wasn't a lucky shot. I knew exactly what I was doing.
Use a little strategy.
What? Hey! This game is facing a few issues and bugs, as you just witnessed. See if we can get the bomb with it next. There he goes. Okay, Wonder Woman's scouting us there. Let's give him a few debuffs. Bit of a distraction. Yeah, they wouldn't actually have 2 points if the game didn't decide to just ring me out. It just decided it was just like, hey, now, you know what, man? And that's all she wrote. I'm going to select a rematch. Let's see if they all go for it. Wonder Woman doesn't want to go for it. Auto-forming party, I'm not going to do that. So there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. Those are the perks to be using with Gizmo. Of course, there was a few issues with the game recently. I don't know what that was, but you've witnessed it for yourself. That has been happening quite often recently. Hopefully that will be fixed in due time with a patch. As I've just been, like, there's been games where I've been falling through the ground and all sorts. Some funny ones that I will be sharing. But guys, thank you for watching another video right here on the Anthony YouTube channel. Let me know what perks you're using with your Gizmo. Are you using Retaliation Ready? That is definitely the MVP perk that I've selected for this one that many of you might not have been considering, as you need to have those high damage numbers on that enemy in order to get that knockback with that arrow. But of course, that Ignite with that It's Flammable Dock, definitely one that most of you are already scouting and using with your Gizmo build. Let me know what you're using. Don't forget there's more multiverses right here that you should see on screen right now, and I'll see you in the next one right here on the Anthony Allen YouTube channel. Thank you for watching, and remember, you are awesome.